Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we start some impatience seeds. So let's go. I live in New Hampshire. I garden in Zone 5B and my average last frost date is around May 15th. Today is February 18th and I'm about 12 and a half weeks away from my average last frost date. When it comes to seed starting, I try to be really careful and I look at the seed packets and I try not to start them earlier than I need to. The reason is when you start plants too early, you end up with plants that get stressed out and they end up not looking as good as they could have been if you started them at the right time. The type of impatiens that we're going to start today are called Walleriana. They're also known as Busy Lizzy or Beacon Impatiens. Now these impatiens are different than New Guinea impatiens. I'll be starting those seeds on a different day, so be on the lookout for that video. Impatiens seeds should be started about 10 to 12 weeks before your average last frost date. And if you don't know what your average last frost date is, check out the website below, enter in your zip code, and then go to the map that's on the website. You also can just do a search on the internet if you search up what is my average last frost date and then your location. And if you live in the United States, enter in your zip code also. The big thing to know is when it comes to gardening, if you live in the same zone as someone else, you might not be starting your seeds at the same time. In other words, if you live in Zone 5B like I do, our average last frost dates might be different. So that date is very critical when it comes to seed starting. I really enjoy growing impatiens from seed, and I've been doing it for a number of years. I typically start with seed that I've collected, and I'll put a link down in the description below showing you my process for collecting impatiens seeds. The seeds are tiny, and not only are they tiny, they're very slow to germinate. It can take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for impatiens seeds to germinate. And because of that, it is so important to keep your seeds moistened. You do not want your seeds to dry out while you wait for them to germinate. I start hardening off my impatiens slowly as my average last frost date approaches. And since I collect my own seeds, I often end up with lots of different variations when it comes to the colors. The plant thrives in part shade to shade conditions, and since I have a lot of shade in my yard, it's a must-have plant for me. I especially like planting them in my hanging baskets to act as a very pretty filler plant. I also like to plant out the impatiens in my landscape so it can act as a bedding plant. In fact, it mounds very quickly when given the right amount of water. Impatiens even look great in a window box. It's amazing how quickly they fill out a container like that. And I also like to put them in various different pots and other containers around my yard. I rely very heavily on this plant, which is why I like to grow so much of this plant from seed. And not only do I save a lot of money growing my own impatiens from seed, but I also save money by collecting my own seeds year after year. The pictures aren't great, but I wanted to share some pictures that I took in 2020 of impatiens that I had started from seed and how great they all looked. A strong storm was coming and I didn't want to lose all the beautiful plants, so I brought them all in for shelter. But they really made an impact and looked so beautiful as they were huddled near each other. When it comes to impatiens, when you plant the seed and you want to know how many days it's going to be until you see a blossom, that's called days to maturity. And it's about 80 to 95 days. And that translates into approximately 11 to 13 weeks. That's a long time, which is why we're starting the seeds so early. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you the seeds I'm going to be sowing this year and my process for sowing them. Here are all the impatiens seeds that I will be starting this year. This one right here is new to me. I bought this from Dollar Tree. And it was $1.25, which I thought was a really good deal. Now this will be an experiment because I've never grown impatiens from Dollar Tree. And I'll let you know for sure how the germination rate is for these seeds. And you can see at the bottom it says easy to plant. Honestly, yes, I love impatiens, but I wouldn't say they're the easiest seeds to plant. And then it says just apply and water. Now that is true, but because the seeds take a long time to germinate, you want to keep watering. You don't just water it once. And then notice it says all natural mixture. I'll show you what it says on the back. Right here it says 1% impatiens, Walleriana. And then the rest of it is 99% inert matter. Now that's probably just to keep the seeds moist. And so that's why they're adding so much of that inert matter. And that's important to know when it comes to buying seeds in general. I've noticed that even with grass seeds, a lot of times it's very little grass seeds and mostly inert matter. And then it says it has about 100 seeds in here. And again, the packet says the seeds perform best in moist soil. And it says mulching is recommended. Now, when it comes to starting seeds indoors, if you want to, you can cover your seeds with something like a fine vermiculite. And down here, this is just some additional information that's on the back of the packet. Now, it does say that the seeds will germinate in 10 days or less. I mean, they might, but just know that it could take longer as well. I bought these seeds from Outside Pride last year. Now, right here, notice it says New Guinea. That's actually the reason why I bought it, was I thought it was a New Guinea impatiens. But notice right above it, it says that this is an impatiens Walleriana. So I consider this not a New Guinea impatiens. And this is what it says on the back of this packet. Again, notice it says keep moist until germination. Now, what I thought was funny is over here it says average germ time, 3 to 10 days. If you've ever grown impatiens from seed, I think you would know that the seeds typically don't germinate in 3 days. So I thought that was interesting that they have a low end of 3 days. This looks like a hodgepodge of a mess, but these are impatient seeds that I've collected. And you can see that it's a mixture of the seed as well as the non-seed material mixed in there. But if you look carefully, you can see small, round, brown seeds in there. Here I have some seed starting mix. I like to make my own seed starting mix, and I'll put a link to a video down in the description. It's basically 2 parts of peat moss, but you can use cocoa coir, to 1 part of very fine vermiculite. And then I add a small pinch of dolomite lime, which helps offset the pH of the peat moss. I also poured boiling hot water on my seed starting mix. You want to use pre-moistened seed starting mix, but also the boiling hot water helps kill any possible fungus gnat eggs that might be in here. I like to use nice, fluffy seed starting mix when it comes to impatiens because the impatient seeds are very small. And I feel like if I used something heavy like potting mix, the seeds would not germinate as nicely as they do in something fluffy like seed starting mix. When I squeeze my seed starting mix, notice there's no water dripping out. But when I let go, it's holding its form. And that's the right consistency that you want for your seed starting or potting mix. I like to use restaurant takeout containers because honestly they're free to me and they make wonderful little greenhouses. In fact, this one has little vent holes in it, which is wonderful because in case it gets too hot in there. And I did make holes in the bottom of the container because you want to bottom water your seedlings. You don't ever want to water them from above because that can introduce all sorts of problems. So I'm going to go ahead and add my seed starting mix to my container. And now I'm going to press on the seed starting mix. I want to take out any air pockets that might be in there. I don't want to press too hard because I don't want to compact the seed starting mix too much. When you start seeds, it's important to add labels. There are so many different ways you can add labels. I'm just adding a small label like this. Notice it has Dollar Tree Impatiens and the seeds are being sown on February 18th. When it comes to seed starting, I do like to use garden markers because I find that they don't wear off as easily as a pen or a Sharpie. So I'll go ahead and just add my label into my container. I just want to show you inside of the packet. You can see there's quite a bit of material in there. So if I had to guess, I would say the inert matter is a larger grade of vermiculite. And the impatient seeds are hard to find because there's so much inert matter. Again, this is going to be a good experiment to see how the Dollar Tree impatiens do for us. Let's go ahead and just get them all sown inside our container. And I'm going to be sowing the whole entire packet in this container. I like to thin out my seedlings as they germinate. It saves a lot of space under my lights and only the viable seeds are going to germinate. If you have a lot of success growing impatiens from seed and you can collect your own seeds, that's even cheaper than buying your seeds from Dollar Tree, the way that I did this year. But I thought that this would be a fun project and fun to show you how it does. And in the fall, I'll definitely show you my process for collecting the seeds from these impatiens plants. And then you'll never have to buy seeds again when it comes to impatiens, which is super nice. So far we've sown that much and there's still quite a bit in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just get the rest of these seeds and inert matter sown. I'm just moving it around, and after I do that, I'm going to go ahead and press the seeds into the seed starting mix. And remember, impatient seeds need light to germinate. And the vermiculite is fine because the light can still go through the layer of the vermiculite. And I'm just going to use this small hand pump sprayer. I like to add a little additional water on top of the seeds just so that they really press into the seed starting mix and have a better chance of germination. I'm going to go ahead and I'm very, very lightly going to spray or mist the seeds and the inert matter. And remember, if the seeds have not germinated, it's so important to continue spraying the top of them. Next, I'm going to add this cover. Notice that it's clear. This is going to act as a humidity dome. It's going to allow light to come in, it's going to keep the seeds moist, and it's going to keep it a nice humid environment in there, which the seeds need to germinate. Now, if you wanted to, you could add something like clear plastic wrap, and that would do the same job. I'll be sowing the rest of these off camera, but I'll be sure to give you updates once these germinate also. Let me go ahead and show you what the actual seeds look like, just so you know. I'm just using a mesh strainer, and I have a bowl beneath it. And it's just an easy way to separate the seeds from the non-seed material, which is called the chaff. I still have a lot in this one seed packet, but let's go ahead and show you how many seeds just came out. And that's a close-up of the seeds. Now, Dollar Tree is great, but remember, if you collect your own seeds, you can end up with hundreds and hundreds of your own seeds that you can use year after year. Now I'm placing the restaurant takeout container on a seedling heat mat, which stays on 24 hours a day in order to get the 70 to 75 degree Fahrenheit range. And notice I have my grow lights here. These are turned on 16 hours a day from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Remember, be patient. It might take 2 to 3 weeks to see some sort of germination. Once I see good germination, I will remove this container off of the heat mat, but I'll make sure that they're still under the grow lights because they will need that nice strong light. Thinning out and potting up will be done as soon as I have my first set of true leaves. As I check on my seeds, I like to make sure that they're not drying out. That is critical. Anytime you surface sow a seed, especially a seed that takes a long time to germinate like impatiens, you definitely want to make sure you're spritzing the top of the seeds with water so that they don't dry out. However, once the seeds germinate, you don't want to be spritzing the top of them. At that point, you want to go ahead and start bottom watering your seedlings. I'll be sure to make update videos as the seeds germinate, and also my process for pricking them out, potting them up, fertilizing them, pinching them back, and then getting them out in the landscape. Please let me know in the comments below if you grow impatiens in your yard. And if so, do you buy the plants or have you had success growing them from seed? And here's a fun fact. Impatiens are very easy to propagate with cuttings. I'll add a link to a video I made in the description in case you want to know the process for doing that. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.